Good evening to all of you. On behalf of Association of National Exchanges Members of India, I extend my warm welcome to today's webinar on guidelines for MIIs regarding cyber security and cyber resilience. All of you know that day by day, the security issue, particularly cyber security, has become an important and a necessity one for every one of us. This is important because government, corporate, medical organizations collect a lot of information, including our own community. We collect a lot of information, and amount of data what we are having in computers, phenomenal. So that requires safety, and particularly we should avoid negative consequences of leakage of such data. Cybersecurity, of course, is a very, very sensitive issue from various point of view. And we are having different types of securities also. Network security is there. Application security is there. Information or data security, cloud security. So these are different types of securities are there. Mobile security. So ultimately, the whole objective of these guidelines is that how to navigate, or rather how to go through the process of ensuring cyber security and cyber resilience as far as our operations are concerned. These guidelines given to make us prepared or to implement these guidelines without any hesitation or without any loss of time. Today, we are fortunate to have with us three eminent speakers. Rather, one is moderator, Mr. Shankar, Ramarkhiani, Chief Information Security Officer and Head Business Continuity, IIFL. Mr. Sachchidanand Muchandi, he is from Director Group, Chief Information Security Officer, JM Financial Limited. Mr. Kamaiah Nadavala, VP, Head of Information Security, Chief Information Security Office, Upstox. It is my privilege to introduce each one of them. I will do that also. Please wait. First, I will introduce the moderator of this today's session, Mr. Shankar Ramarkhiani. He is with IIFL since May 2018 and has 18 years plus of work experience and have strong domain expertise in information security, GRC, IT audits, business continuity, management, IT governance, risk management, etc. He has played a pivotal role in enhancing overall information security posture and BCP posture for our organization. He is currently designated as Chief Information Security Officer and also managing business continuity management. Prior to IIFL, he was working as Head Information Security and BZM with the Sumitomo Mitsui Banking Corporation and have worked earlier with organizations including Future General India Life Insurance, Reliance Communications, Symantec and Wipro. He holds professional information security certifications like ISO 27001, 22301, COBIT, ITIL, PCI, DAS. It is my privilege to introduce the speaker of today's session, Mr. Sachchidanand Muchandi. He is the Group CISO at JM Financial Limited and has 28 plus years of a rich experience spanning across all the verticals in IT, information security, turnkey projects like design and commissioning of large data centers, headquarters, offices into BFS segment. He held various positions in this career like R&D engineer, application developer, system administrator, senior network engineer, ethical hacker, network head, data center operations head, turnkey project lead, IT infrastructure head, security head, and group CSO. With his skills and experience, he has completely transformed and elevated IT of the organizations wherever he worked. Then we are having another speaker today, Mr. Kamaiah Nadavala, a postgraduate in computer science with more than 17 plus years of IT experience, including 12 plus years dedicated to the field of cybersecurity. He began his career as a Java developer and subsequently transitioned into the cybersecurity domain. His diverse experience spans various sectors, including retail, banking, e-commerce, stockbroking, which is relevant to us also mostly. Currently hold the position of CISO at Upstox. So today with these three eminent participants, that is speakers, 2 speakers and 1 moderator, definitely this session is going to be a valuable one, an important one for all the participants, in particularly the members of ANMI. With this introduction, I'm leaving the floor to the moderator, Mr. Shankar. Please, sir, take over.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Suresh, for the
sir, unmute, sir. Unmute.
Yeah, you're able to hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you, Mr. Suresh, for the warm introduction.
Okay. We're not able to hear you, sir.
We can hear you.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, sir. Please go ahead.
Yeah. So thank you for the warm introduction, and for all 3 of us, and would like to thank ANMI for giving me the opportunity to moderate this insightful session on the cybersecurity guidelines for the MIIs, right? And you rightly set the context of this session, right, that cybersecurity is the business matter, with the way threats landscape are changing, right? And it's becoming very, very tough for the organizations to secure the information, right? So cyber security and data security is not the paramount importance for any organization, be it in any industry. And with in the BFSS segment especially, right, all regulators they are issuing a lot of stringent guidelines, right, for them to ensure that the entire financial ecosystem is secure, right? So with this we'll start my set of questions, and we have a very good a panel with us, right? So yeah, so I'll start with my first question to Sachchidanand, right? So to start with, right, can you brief our audience about SEBI recent guidelines for MIS on resilience, right, and in its overall importance in the context related to financial industry for these MIIs, and including the brokers, because SEBI, the way it works is that first they release the guidelines for the MIS, and slowly it also extended to the brokers, right? We have seen the similar past with the RBI, the other regulators. Yeah.
Good evening, Sachchidanand here. Okay, that is a very important question in the today's context. Now, cybersecurity is being recognized as an essential need for digital business, digital transformation of India. Now, as per the independent survey, India faced almost 290% increase in the number of attacks as compared to the previous year. And this is a huge surge in the ransomware and IoT cyber attacks. Right. So cyber attacks are on rise across the sectors, and the attacks are increasingly becoming sophisticated. Additionally, India is a favorable environment for cyber criminals, given the combination of minimal public awareness on the cybersecurity issues, as well as the vulnerability in the cybersecurity infrastructure itself. Now, it's time for the government organization to wake up that they are custodian of the public information. Security is their primary responsibility, a legal obligation for government and public sector organizations and corporates. Now, hence, SEBI being a regulatory body for securities and commodity markets in India, under the ownership of Ministry of Finance within Government of India, it's owning its responsibility. Right? MIs are systemically important institutions. They must have robust cybersecurity framework addressing all the possible gaps, right? And they should continuously keep evolving their IT processes and controls to address the concerns of interconnectedness and interdependency as well. Now, having said this, definitely, SEBI being a regulatory body and owning its responsibility, it will make this mandatory in terms of the guidelines and the circulars from time to time. Now, this is what is happening now. So I see this new guideline of for MII as and other guidelines which are in process of being released as an effort or a step towards the to meet above purpose. And as I said, cybersecurity is an essential need of the business. That is how I can see this circular guideline.
Yeah. Sure. So very well said, right? And as you rightly pointed out, there is an increase in the number of attacks, right? India being the most targeted country. So recently, I was reading the news that we are the second most in the overall APAC, right? Our economy is growing, right, and everyone is watching. So by default, as a country, right, where you have a large financial base, right, you're bound to get targeted, right, and attacks will increase, right, and other point you also rightly mentioned, okay, on the playing a role of cyber security, right, it's an essential for every organization, right, in any industry. And MIs being the critical body, right, and they closely work with all the brokers and the other stakeholders, right, and so their role is also becoming very very important to ensure that security elements are taken care. And SEBI, being the regulatory, have to take an ownership to ensure that all the intermediaries which they deal with, right, are complying with these guidelines. So I concur to what you said, and it really set the context that cyber security, data security will be core importance, and in terms of any organization need, or and everyone have to comply and primarily ensure controls are in place to reduce the risk. Yeah. So yeah, Kamaiah, your thoughts on the same question, right? How do you see these guidelines, right, on the cyber security and overall resilience, right? We talk about resilience these days. So organization have to be double proof, right, or full proof, to ensure that even if there is a cyber attack, right, they should recover and bring the business on time. Yeah. Your thoughts on these guidelines, please.
Yeah, sure. So first of all, I would like to thank ANMI and give me this opportunity to share my insights and expertise with respect to the guidelines shared by SEBI. And good evening to everyone. And so I was, I'm very happy, to say that I was part of SEBI discussions with respect to cyber security and cyber resiliency framework. I was part of all those discussions, and I have had a lot of interactions, and we have given a lot of inputs, and then SEBI has considered some of them, and some of them also, they have strictly said that they wanted to, call it as a regulatory, control. So overall, the need is very very clear. So the context set by my colleagues, so it's very strong and very very clear. So the need is there. So it's not about only one sector is secure, and it has to be all the sectors need to be secured. So that's why I was one of the more happiest person when the DPDP bill was passed. So it's not about your organization is secure. So it's like the PA data is everywhere. So if one organization is breached, the same PA data is used across multiple verticals. So the attackers are using this PA data and then penetrating the system. So to keeping the network and your environment secure, right? So you need to follow a certain guideline. So SEBI has definitely put a very good amount of effort, and have taken input from various stakeholders and across the industry. And these guidelines are very comprehensive. I've seen and I've gone through this, and then they covered almost all the landscape, and very precise and pinpoint controls that can help the organization to improve the security posture, and also be resilient about any kind of a cyber attack. So if resilience, when we talk about resilience, right, when an attack happens, so how does your environment react? How quickly you can recover from the breach? And how quickly you can be operational as a business? How quickly you can recover from the breach, or any kind of a ransomware attack, or any kind of cyber attack? So that's a resilience. So the SEBI guidelines talks about the primary focus is on resilience. Yeah, so I think definitely when we get into the discussion, we will talk more on to those points. So
yeah. Thank you. So yeah, you rightly pointed out that everyone is waiting for the personal data protection bill, right? And I think it will really change the way businesses were taking the data from the customers and the other stakeholders, and how organization need to ensure that right controls are in place to secure the information. And SEBI, yeah, they came up with these guidelines, and the other discussions on the upcoming guidelines for the brokers will also be a game changing, so that the way we were handling the data or putting up the controls, right, that will be more streamlined, and more I would say detailed and with the thorough reviews will ensure that data is secured, and more than the attacks happen, as you rightly said, but cyber resilient organization have to adopt to think that they are attacked or they are breached, but they also need to learn of how to bring those businesses up and running, right? Should there be a cyber attack which is actually impacting their operations. So my to continue this question, right? So what are the key cyber risks that MI should be worried, right? Or as a even including the brokers, right? Or any organization, and how can these guidelines help addressing those risks, right? Because risk will be a part and parcel of the day-to-day affair of the CISO and the organization, but how what are the key cyber risks that one should be worried, and how these guidelines will help them to reduce those risks to the good acceptable level.
Yeah, sure. So the key cyber risks, I would say that the ransomware attacks, so any kind of a phishing attack, or the phishing is very crucial these days. It's become a way of life for attacker. So that's that they do a social engineering and then do a spear phishing attack, and the spear phishing is very focused way of doing it, and it's very difficult to recognize the tools and technologies are there, right? So the only way you can eliminate phishing or survive from these kind of emails, right? So to improve the awareness within the organization for across all the employees, right? So phishing attack, malware attacks, or I think any kind of we have seen a lot of DDoS attacks. So as in when even the G20 meet is happening, right? So there was a communication from certain, so there is a huge amount of DDoS attack is expected on across verticals. So these are all the very common risks I can imagine, and at this point of time. And how is this guidelines published by SEBI is going to help these MIIs or any other stakeholders here? Currently, we are focusing on MIIs, but I would say that they're definitely focused on all the aspects of cyber security and cyber resilience aspect. So to start with, definitely the awareness has been very important, pivotal role with respect to cyber security. So across, we have seen that even the CEO is being impersonated. So these days, that's the kind of attacks we are seeing. That's very easy for them. So because impersonate somebody and then send a WhatsApp message and then try to share a link or ask some favor. So this has become very common these days. And imagine that technical people or CEOs are being impersonated. Look at the common people and then normal employees who doesn't understand the security, right? So in that sense, I would say that they have definitely focused on the awareness and training aspect. And most importantly, I have seen that guidelines talks about multi-factor authentication for all your critical applications. And although they talk about patch management is very crucial, that you keep your patch management up to date, and as and when you are deploying you are upgrading your OS, or your OS has any new patches released, right? Those need to be patched on timely basis. And having endpoint security controls, having email security controls, and also host-based firewalls, and VAPT, red team assessments, and various other things like continuous monitoring. You having a in-house or a managed SOC to understand the tools and technology deployed in the environment, and then absorbing those alerts and signals, and see if there is any kind of malicious activities going on within your network, right? So although one of the key area also they focused on network segmentation. So to name few, these are the few things I can get right away. But definitely they have focused on all the aspects of cyber security and cyber resilience, and they've covered all the aspects of it. I would say that these guidelines are very comprehensive and can help the organization to improve the security posture.
Yeah, you covered almost each and every aspect, right? So you rightly pointed out that ransomware would be still the pain point, right? Or the most dangerous attack of all of these, right? Because it literally brings down your business, right? And the common ways that primary the phishing, social engineering, email coming to our network, which we are not able to primarily which we are able to detect, however, due to user negligence, right? And the impersonation of the CEOs. So, and the awareness you mentioned, two-factor authentication for critical applications. So these are all primarily considered as a security hygiene, right? to, ensure that, organization do not suffer, okay, if these controls, are, if not in place, right? So, yeah, so I think very well, said on this, aspect. Yeah. So my question to, Sachi, right? So we would like to know your views on the role that security technology, when I say one is the process oriented people awareness, how the security technology, any specific technologies, emerging technologies playing a role in enhancing the cyber security and the resilience, and how they can be, remain updated, right? And what kind of innovations we need to bring in to ensure that, organization is in good shape and, we meet continuous compliance. Sachi, over to you.
Yeah. So the attacker keeps attacking multiple times and he has to succeed only once. But we as a defender has to be successful every time. So definitely we need to have the technology behind, which is kind of automated technology and incorporates multiple AI-based modules, AI-based algorithms, right? Because cyber attacks are increasingly sophisticated, and hence the detection and response to these threats also has to be AI-driven now. Right? Artificial intelligence is rapidly coming up as a key component in cybersecurity. Now, AI is almost disruptive technology of our times. So we haven't seen any technology disrupting to this extent. Now, this AI can be used to automate the task to identify and respond to the incident more quickly and effectively than what human or process-driven can do. So AI is still a relatively new technology in cybersecurity, but it has a huge potential to revolutionize our defense detection and defense mechanism. So by automation, AI can help organizations to protect themselves from the increasingly sophisticated attacks and be resilient. So there are a lot of new technology coming up on the perimeter side, be it a firewall or on the endpoint, be it ADR, or on the ticketing, automated ticketing, be it on the SOC side. So AI is everywhere. So I think in the technology perspective, AI is a very key thing, and we should adopt the technology which uses the AI as the backbone or the main core competency in this.
Yes, and yeah, very well makes sense, right? And you rightly pointed out the first thing is that, attacker have to, succeed only once, right? And defending is a still, you need to ensure that you need to, keep all your doors locked, right? And one bad incident or, one bad attempt, if it's successful, can, jeopardize, entire network or organization state. So yeah, very well noted. And you also rightly mentioned is that if we want to upkeep, ourselves, right? Or, if we want to be ahead of the curve, right? We have to adopt the new, technologies, right? We have seen generative AI, okay, is becoming a game changer, right? And there are a lot of benefits, but there are a lot of misuses also, right? And as a security, professionals of the organization, we need to ensure that, controls are put up, or, we need to have a proper guidelines of these, technologies. And I think AI also has to be, go along with the security, right? And we need to have these emerging technologies, right? And in order to, combat against the latest, attacks, which we never know, at what, at pace it will come, and, what could be, the repercussion if that, gets succeeded, right? So yeah, very well noted. Yeah.
And
so
then in addition to this, Ram, now we are building this technology, we are building this detection and protection and defense and resilience. But the last line of defense is the user himself.
Yeah.
So after crossing all these boundaries or barriers, when it lands onto the user's inbox or a particular link on the website, then user is the only a defense which is left out now. So training these users, identifying the users who are vulnerable into what area.
Sure.
So there also AI can be used. We try to use what we send a phishing mail, internal phishing mails, and try to find out where the particular user is lacking. And so accordingly, we give the training. So this also can be automated. There are certain companies, Israel-based companies, which are deploying AI for this matter also.
Yes.
So they study the user profile onto the internet, their behavior, etc., and based on that, they make certain models to be learned by them. Yeah.
Yeah. So
So here also we
customizing
can do
based on the user need. Yes. So that more risky user, more, the control, or, more awareness to be done in that way, so that the user understand, overall, context, so that he does not, fail, or he should not, fall into a trap. Makes sense.
Sure.
Yeah. question to Kamaiah is primarily, how can, MIs, ensure compliance, right? Because guidelines issued, then the first thing is that you need to comply, right? So compliance, and there are certain timelines associated to it, right? So in this guidelines, they have given, 120 days, okay, to ensure that, each and every control of, 28, control points are implemented. And at the same time that, how to maintain the operational, efficiency and competitiveness, which means that security should not become a disruption, right? When I say disruption, that the business should go as usual. So tech security is not a luxury affair. We know that sometimes it impacts the performance. Users face the inconvenience, right? So, but you cannot say no to compliance. You have to comply. So you can't bypass the security also. So how both do a proper handshake to ensure that how MIS can comply with these guidelines without disturbing the overall organization in operations. Yeah, Kamaiah.
Yeah, that's a very good question, but I do have a different, example that can, change
Sure.
the thought process here.
Sure.
So following guidelines, I will become a compliance to SEBI
Yep.
regulatory standpoint, right? So what about my operational efficiency and competitiveness? So that is the question. So in the previous organization, so when I'm dealing with open source software libraries, so in the previous experience, I'm saying, so there were a lot of open source software vulnerabilities were identified. So remediating them has become humongous task. So what we have done based on CVSS score rating, we have prioritized these vulnerabilities, and then so as a phase one, we will go ahead and remediate all the CVSS score 10 vulnerabilities. So then, so it's convincing you're convincing your your architects. You're dealing, when you are dealing with architects, you need to be very comprehensive, and then also go with a POC based approach. So what we have done, we have picked 4 or 5 critical open source software vulnerabilities, and then did a POC, and so we have shown them that how it can be exploited, and how it is going to lead to a data breach, so that they understood, and then they started working on it. So we have seen a lot of good testimonials coming after this. One of the architects went ahead and then upgraded all the open source OSS related vulnerabilities, open source software vulnerabilities, and the testimonial came from him is, so because of though we not only remediated the security vulnerabilities, we also improved the application performance, because they were using a legacy open source software. So by upgrading to the latest version, they got that flexibility, and then also look at the performance that they have seen, right? It was tremendous. They were very happy with that. So unless if a security team was not pushing, that jar wouldn't have been upgraded. So in this way, our security is not a cost center. Security is also effective with respect to compliance, and also performance, and also reducing the and also with the competitiveness. Also, it will help you with the flexibility. And one another example I would like to take. So we were looking at a SAST solution, so static code application security solution in DevOps pipeline. So earlier, olden days, what we used to do, we used to deploy a tool. That tool tool does the scan, and then all those findings, you again identify the false positives, true positives, and eliminate false positives, and then go back, raise a bug, and go back to the developer. So this is a long process. So if the pipeline increases, you need to have a program manager to circle with all the relevant stakeholders and then remediate the findings. So that's a long process. So with the latest technology, so what we have done, we have deployed a SAST tool in the DevOps pipeline. And as soon as developer pushes the code to a repository, so the tool does the scanning. It does the scanning for your security vulnerabilities. It also does for secret scanning and open source software related vulnerabilities. So, and also license related vulnerabilities as well. So all this at one shot, it can scan and then tell the developer. So developer understands the tool has the capability to give a good documentation and also awareness on the security as well. And also it gives us code snippet on how do you remediate that particular vulnerability. And so they can also there is a playground that can help them to test that the gap and then push the code to the production, to the repository. So this portion, so almost 70% of the vulnerabilities were not being looked at by a security team. So the developer themselves, the security has been shifted to completely left. So developer, they themselves were able to understand and fix the vulnerabilities. So in here, I would say We have eliminated a lot of bandwidth consumed by security, and also program management bandwidth, and also developer bandwidth. Again, this the communication also we have avoided. So security this way, if you follow the right process and right tools and technologies deployed at the right places, right, security, I don't think so it becomes operational barrier or a competitive barrier. So security always becomes operational effectiveness, and it help the organization not only from compliance standpoint, it also help the effectiveness standpoint. So I've seen very good testimonials coming from developers, testimonials coming from architects also. So I think in this aspect, I think it will also help the MIS also with respect to the following these guidelines, help them to operational efficiency and competitiveness.
Yeah. I think very good two examples. And as you rightly said, that's why we always mention that security is everyone's responsibility, right? And why to only burden the security team, and you need to make them empowered, give them right tools and technology so that they can see the issue and try to remediate. I think that was when security is not a cost center, at least in the BFS and other industries which are also growing, where investors, stakeholders, okay, your top management board, okay, they also want to ensure that security things related to security are in good shape. So I think very well explained on these two examples, right? Especially on the open source patching, as well as building a strong CI/CD pipeline, okay, which is actually helping developers to find the issues at the code, so that less time spent on VAPT and the product can roll out and at a faster space for the customers. Yeah, pretty good. So yeah, my question to Sachi is that now, so we understand the CB underlines more on the continuous monitoring and risk management, right? So they see the importance. So can you share maybe industry best practices on how to achieve these aspects, right? So when I say continuous monitoring, as well as so that risk assessment, risk management is taken care, and related to these guidelines. Yeah, Sachi.
Yeah. So one of the critical component which gives any the company the complete edge is the technology or business intelligence, of course, cyber security and cyber resilience, right? So the IT footprint is growing, and also it is getting complicated. With the cloud infra coming into picture, the user going out of network perimeter, the perimeter of the security has increased multifold. With this on the background, continuous monitoring of the entire IT infra, the visibility across the entire IT infra is a key component here. Now, for the large organization which has multiple IT teams and they got multiple IT operation teams, so this visibility across all IT infra and the changes which is happening in each of the IT infra is a key component to consider here. So that is why the continuous monitoring of all these changes happening, and also on the infra point of view, is a critical component. And there are many of the tools which are available in the market. Of course, one suits based on the ecosystem which the organization has it. So such tools need to be deployed, which will bring the transparency and also monitoring from two point of view. One is the IT point of view, and second is from cyber security point of view. So whether all the configuration of these components and the applications are as per our policy or not, or whether they are being done they followed the process correctly or not. So these things is one point which we need to include. And second is the risk assessment part. Now, one has to identify the critical assets based on the criticality to its business, as well as from IT point of view. And once these critical assets are identified, and performing the risk or the risk assessment of this critical infra, and keeping track of this risk assessment and getting those open or vulnerable points closed with a consistent follow-up with the team is also a prime importance. And this is a tedious task. Given at any point of time, there are say 100, 200 critical assets, and keeping track of the risk assessment and doing the VAPT, as Kamaiah was saying, doing the VAPT and keeping track of it is also an important thing. So with the help of the tools, we can automate certain process here, and bring in the visibility and secure the infra and the operations.
Yes. Yeah. So you rightly mentioned identification of the assets is must, right? So that accordingly you can do the risk assessment, and it's an ongoing process. You also touched upon the monitoring of, two components. One is, of course, one is the security monitoring and the IT monitoring, because systems goes down, right? That also, hampers, availability aspect of the CIA trade, right? Which is confidential, integrity and availability. So systems have to be, available 24/7. That's why, SEBI has been, very strict on that part for both, whether it's MIs or brokers, to ensure that systems and network, everything is available for the, customers, 24/7. And risk assessment primarily will be an important, element, and it will be an ongoing process, right? It's not only one time, and you need to continue, assess your, network and, other applications for any threats. Yeah. Thank you. So yeah, so my question to Kamaiah is primarily, so SEBI aims is, boosting information among the MIs and the brokers, right? So maybe share, few successful, industry collaborations, right, that improved, cyber resilience, right? So let's say RBI also does a lot of for banks, IRDA does it, for the insurance companies. SEBI have started now, with the MIs and brokers. So maybe share your experience, how this, close collaboration, works to, secure the, entire, ecosystem.
Yeah, I've seen. Since, as I mentioned before, so SEBI's collaboration has been very effective in this way. So we've seen, as a stakeholders, we all participated in those discussions, have given the key inputs, and a lot of those inputs have been considered. So, and also we have observed, and SEBI is closely working with RBI. RBI is being very stringent about guidelines and then implementing those security controls in the banking domain. And we have seen that and how secure is our banking system, and UPS being one of the strongest story we can talk about. So SEBI is closely working with RBI, and whatever the controls RBI is imposing, and that is. And also the kind of attacks happening in stockbroking industry, also they're closely monitoring. So the kind of fraudulent activities happening, why those kind of activities happening, because in this domain a lot of users are not very well aware of security. So people would like to spend money in stock and then get some money back in short span. So not all the users look for long-term investments. For such kind of users can fall for any kind of fraudulent tricks over the internet. So somebody can impersonate an organization itself. They take a organization logo and then they say that I am so and so, and you can pay some money and then I can give you some amount back. So such kind of tricks have been fraudulent use cases have been observed. And one of the last discussion with SEBI, I was under understanding they do have a lot of metrics, and they're also understanding on what basis these fraudulent activities are happening, and what are the similar situations in banking sector, how RBI is controlling them. So one such example is device binding and SIM binding, and also mobile number binding. There's a combination to track the where exactly the fraudulent transaction has been triggered, and how a user has lost his money, or any maybe the transaction happened, right? They wanted to identify such kind of use cases at a very detailed manner, and also understand the location as well. So in that sense, I see that RBI is very close. SEBI is very closely working with RBI, and seeing what are those controls that can be applicable to stockbroking domain, and also suggesting and requesting and taking inputs from stockbrokers, and also telling them that the necessity of those controls can improve the security posture for the stockbroking industry.
Yes, yeah. Strong collaboration, makes the entire, organization or the system, right, to secure as much we can do. And as you rightly said, that now the regulations have also, different regulators are also collaborating with each other, right? And you touched upon the the fraudulent aspect, right? If something can happen in any industry, right, similar pattern can be replicated here, and take knowledge sharing and implement those control steps, okay, to ensure that issues though happen but can be reduced to a good certain extent. Yeah, just to addition to this question, right, so these guidelines, right, we have seen it. So can the MIS or broker of could be can these meet these guidelines with limited resources, or does organizations have sufficient resources, right, at this moment to to meet this compliance? What is your thought? Right, regulation guidelines keep coming, right, but teams are same primarily hiring, we don't do it every day, right? So but with the current staff or bandwidth or the technology gamut we have at security technologies, can we meet these guidelines? What is your thought process?
See, the guidelines, I completely, I strongly believe these guidelines is going to help all the stakeholders, all the, members, so MIIs, REs, so everybody is going to help, a very big way with respect to enhancing their security posture. So when you look at an organization or MIS with the limited resources, how do they, follow these guidelines? You do not, so most of these guidelines, comes up with a, they have given very pinpoint, guidelines, so that that is where the MI or any stakeholder need to focus on. So you don't have to have a resource for every control. So some of the controls like VAPT, we are already relying on certain empaneled vendors, and even PT also, red teaming also can be done. If you do not have a resource in house, and at the same time, managed SOC is also can be outsourced. So and also there are a lot of tools and technologies, right? If you do not have enough resources, and those technologies can help these MIS, and then help achieving the meeting these guidelines. So that's my opinion.
Yes. So these guidelines are important, and not only it will help the MIs, but wherever it's applicable, once it's implemented in spirit, and resources, organization need to, do their, adjustment, right? Need to do their analysis to see what they need, right? To, comply, and accordingly they can, do the, required, forecasting, and, have this, complied. Yeah. Well said. So, yeah. A question to Sachi is that, how can, MIS maintain balance between the need for transparency and reporting, okay, with the need to protect the sensitive information? What's your view? Should there be any incident happen? Okay, how the way, they will tackle it? Yeah.
Yes. Now, see, the way hackers are connected with each other and they collaborate with each other, and that is how they are becoming more effective in breaching the perimeter or whatever cybersecurity defense we have it. Similarly, we also need to be sharing the information and collaborate with each other. Now, unless there is a guideline, unless there is a mandate from the regulatory body, this won't happen. So I see this as in a positive light that, yes, this is very much required and it is necessary. Yeah, initially we feel that this data may go out and it may affect the brand or it may affect our business, but in a longer term, it is actually beneficial for all the organizations. So to gain the intelligence into, what kind of a threat has happened, what kind of a breach has happened, how it happened, where was the key missing, and how the organization learned and what are the tactics they use to recover from this. So this kind of information, I think we should share it, and there should be proper format and there is a proper structure for this knowledge sharing, so that the knowledge is not misused, but it is used in the right direction.
Yes. Yeah. You said it right. So knowledge has to be shared. Okay. And wherever if one is suffering, at least, he can share their best practices to ensure that, okay, same issue should not happen, in other organization or any industry. And similar way, the right action can be taken so that impact can be reduced. Yeah. So, Kamaiah, so according to you, right, what could be, normally, possible implications, right, or repercussion, let's say, if we don't follow these guidelines, right, or maybe at the organization level, at the regulatory level, right? So what could be possible implications? So I have this question for both of you. So maybe because guidelines are important to meet, right, and it has to be taken in spirit. But let's say not getting implemented, we don't do, justice, to this, right? So what could be the, possible implication for any, let's say, if the same applications, same guidelines are applicable to the broker, right, or any, maybe, mutual fund company, EMC company, right? SEBI deals with all of this. So what could be, implications at the, organization, or, at the, individual level, in the organization? Yeah.
It's quite evident that when SEBI sends a circular, so what happens, you don't follow. So it's clearly communicated. So there is a strong disciplinary action is definitely mentioned, and also there is a penalty as well. So that is keeping that apart. So what will happen if you don't follow these guidelines, right? So we all discussed all these kind of attacks. These days, you just you don't have to launch a bigger application. You just have to launch some web application on the internet. You just face it to the internet. You'll understand the kind of bots going to attack your server, and also the kind of requests going to receive, and then the resources how fast you can exhaust. And also there are script kiddies, there are the hackers everywhere and researchers, right? So you are actually facing entire internet traffic into your server, right? So if it is on the internet, and there's a high possibility of a ransomware attack, a possibility of malware attacks, and the DDoS attacks or bot attacks, so whatnot. So everything is possible. So your environment is susceptible to all these kind of attacks. So that's main implication, I would say, rather than talking about disciplinary action and then penalties. So you are going to take a huge business hit, and then that is going to be a more cost than what you are paying to SEBI or any regulatory body. So yeah, so to avoid this, you need to follow these guidelines, and then have a continuous monitoring on your network, and reacting to those alerts on a timely manner, and then addressing those gaps identified by your SOC team or your internal security team, right? So that way you're safe from all these attacks, and also that helps you to understand your network in depth, and then what controls are in place, what controls are not in place, and also at the same time you uplift your security posture.
Yep. Yeah, you rightly mentioned, right? So more than the compliance or disciplinary, actually organization faces the heat, right? And some of the controls are not implemented, which has led to this attack. And attack can really damage the reputation of the organization, financial loss. Okay, customers, stakeholders lose trust, right? And on top of that, regulatory also becomes there are obligations from them, right, for you not complying with the requirements. So I see both damages, right? One at the organization level in terms of business brand, and other is primarily at the regulatory side of it. Yeah. So same question. I think the last question for Sachi. So same. What is your views on this point?
My view again is in the positive light only for this. How to mitigate this risk is that it's a joint effort by SEBI as well as the internal audit team. Right, the frequent internal audit team should do the audit and then share it with the SEBI. And SEBI, when they come and check or do the audit, then there will be a penalty. Definitely, the penalty has to be paid. But in longer run, what will happen is they will follow these guidelines very strictly, and it is best for the industry itself. So that is how I take it.
Yes. So do a self-assessment of this guidelines, okay, and ensure everything is in place before actually regulator does the audit. And more than the audit, is primarily you should comply, right, and meet to the maximum, right, and improvise over the period, right. And finally, as an organization, we should not wait. Whatever best we can do for the organization, and also to ensure that we are ahead of the curve, right. So we need to improvise and take the cyber security, to the maturity level. Yeah. So thank you, Kamaiah and Sachi, right, for the useful insights. Okay, so we covered, the guidelines. More than the guidelines, primarily it set the context that cyber security is here to stay, and for the organizations, it has become a business matter, board matter, investor matter, and customers are also taking these incidents very, very seriously. And I think with the upcoming data protection act, and with the regulations keep on coming, right, organization have to take certain steps, okay, and educate steps to ensure data is secured, and do cyber security and also become a cyber resilient, because the business disruption, if happens, it's not good for the business. So they need to ensure that they put a mechanism to bring the business up and running should there be any incident at any moment of time. Yeah. So I'm done. So Suresh, I'm done with my set of questions, and if audience have any questions, just let us know so that Kamaiah and Sachi can answer. And yeah, you are on mute.
Any other questions? I think chat box, nothing. I think so far. Actually, I have to thank our moderator, Mr. Shankar, and panel discussion participants, speakers, Mr. Kamaiah and Sachin. I think you brought out various inputs with regard to the guidelines on this cybersecurity and cyber resilience. The takeaways, in my view, I just summed up. Cybersecurity is part of the business. It is essential. And more so because of increase in cyber attacks, because India is the second most country in this manner. And second is, one important thing is all sectors to be secured, which is very, very important. And more so important is the resilience, because once the attack happens, you must be in a position to recover from it. That's what today, I think speakers have said about various attacks like phishing, then malware, impersonation. And another important aspect is assessment of critical assets. Then only the risk assessment can be done effectively. And of course, emerging technologies available, make use of, for example, AI-based algorithms are there, detection and defense mechanisms are there, firewall, etc. But ultimately, rightly said in this panel discussion, user himself is the last defense. So he has to be very careful in making use of what he gets, what he sees, and that will rather protect the whole system or data. I think my members and others today would have had a lovely session on this. I have to thank extremely to all of you, sir. Really, we made very proud of your participation today. And really, finally, you said rightly that guidelines are necessary. It is important. Yes, and more so, penalties also welcome, because then only the implementation will become more effective. I agree with you. Only problem is cost effectiveness with regard to the size of the business. There only the whole problem comes. Anyhow, we are all geared up for that, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Suresh.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.